أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلتها سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا اللهم انفعني بما علمتني وعلمني ما ينفعني وزدني علما آمين يا رب العالمين. We're going to start from verse 253 today. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تلك الرسول فضلنا بعضهم على بعض منهم من كلم الله ورفع بعضهم درجات وآتينا عيسى ابن مريم البينات وأيدناه بروح القدس ولو شاء الله ما اقتتل الذين من بعدهم من بعد ما جاءتهم البينات ولكن اختلفوا فمنهم من آمن ومنهم من كفر ولو شاء الله ما اقتتلوا ولكن الله يفعل ما يريد. Those messengers we raised in rank, some of them above the others. Among them were some to whom Allah spoke, and He raised some of them in degrees. And we gave Jesus, son of Mary, clear proofs, and we supported them with the Holy Spirit. And if Allah had so willed, those who succeeded them would not have fought with one another after the clear proofs had come to them. But they differed. Then among them were some who believed, and among them were some who disbelieved. Now, although we're not supposed to differentiate between the prophets, we all very well know that prophets still have some ranks. For example, Prophet Musa and Prophet Muhammad were the only prophets who talked to Allah directly. Just like that, Prophet Isa alayhi salam was given Holy Spirit, which is Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam, since he was born. However, their nation, they used to fight among each. They used to fight between among each other. So the main cause of the differences which arose after people had received true knowledge through the prophets and which were even aggravated into feuds and wars is not that Allah was helpless and lacked the power to put an end to the fighting. Had He willed so, no one would have had the power to defy the teachings of the prophets, to take the course of disbelief and rebellion against Him, and to spread mischief and corruption in His world. But it was not Allah's will to deprive human beings of their free will and choice and to compel them to follow a particular course. He has created human beings on earth in order to test them and to hence endow them with the freedom to choose from the various alternative courses of belief and action. God did not appoint the prophets as policemen to force people to faith or obedience. He sent them instead with reasonable arguments and clear signs in order to invite people to righteousness. Hence, the cause of all the differences and wranglings and fighting which took place was that people, in exercising the free will granted to them by God, followed divergent courses. In short, people follow divergent ways precisely because of God's omnipotent will that men should not have a choice. Should have a choice. Sorry, they should have a choice. It would be a grave misunderstanding to hold that people follow different paths because God failed to persuade them to follow a path which He wanted to choose, because God is powerful enough to, make them choose and give them clear signs. But it was God who decided to give them free will instead. Verse number 254. يا أيها الذين آمنوا أنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي يوم لا بيع فيه ولا خلة ولا شفاعة والكافرون هم الظالمون. O who you believe, spend of that which we have provided for you before a day comes in which there will be no bargaining, nor friendship, nor intercession, and it is the disbelievers who are the wrongdoers. So spend of what we have provided means spending in the way of Allah. The instruction given here is that those who have adopted the cause of true faith, the cause of Islam, should undertake financial sacrifices for its sake. For example, Hazrat Abu Bakr, and during the expedition of the book, he gave away all his belongings as when they were asked to give. He gave away all his belongings for the cause of Islam, and so did Hazrat Umar. He gave half of his belonging for the sake of Islam. That is what we're also instructed to do. If we have to give as much as we can, because Allah is the giver and the taker. So what we have is from Him, and we have to spend it for Him. And then the other expression here about those who disbelieve, like about the disbelievers, who think that there will be bargaining or friendship. That expression signifies that either those who refuse to obey Allah and held their property to be clearer than God's good pleasure, or those who did not believe in the day of which they had been warned, or those who cherish the false illusion that in hereafter they would somehow be able to secure their salvation, and their association with men devoted to Allah would stand them in good stead for the good stead for this, would intercede with God on their behalf. It's saying that it wouldn't happen. They will be accountable for their deeds only, even if they're friends with people who are Muslims and good people who are very close to Allah. They will still be accountable for their deeds, and there will be no one to intercede for them or no one to speak for them unless they're given permission to do so. Verse number 255. Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayyul qayyum la ta'khuzuhu sinatun wa la nawm lahu ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard man zal ladzi yashfa'u indahu illa bi izni يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. This verse, as we all know, is Ayatul Kursi, the verse of throne, and it is one of the greatest verse of Quran. This verse is also people recite this verse after their prayers, and before they go out or anything, just for protection. It talks about Allah's authority. So let's go to the translation. Allah, there is no God except Him, the ever-living, the self-existent. So this part means that irrespective of the number of gods or objects of worship set up by ignorant people, the fact remains that Godhead in its entirely belongs exclusively to the eternal being of Allah, who is indebted to no one for his existence. In fact, Allah is not only self-existent, but upon him rests the entire order of universe. He alone wields the sovereign authority over his dominion. None shares either his attributes or his power or might, and no one has the same claims against the creatures as he does. Hence, if anywhere in the heavens or the earth someone sets up anything or any person as an object of worship and service, either instead of Allah, or even if someone adds a god along with Allah, that person is declaring war in reality, and that means he's committing a grave sin, which is shirk, which is unforgivable. Neither slumber overtakes him nor sleep. This is a refutation to ideas of those who, in formulating the concepts of God, are inclined to consider God as, to their imperfect selves, and hence ascribe to God the weakness characteristic of human beings. So here, this verse is refuting them here. It's telling them that Allah is free from all kinds of human weaknesses. He does not need to rest. He made this world by just saying one word, be, and that's it. He doesn't need to rest about anything. He can do whatever the task is, and he wouldn't need rest for it. And just by saying that he doesn't need sleep, it means that he doesn't, just like sleep, he doesn't need any other human needs. He is free from all the human weaknesses that we have. To him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth. So to God belongs the heavens and the earth and everything therein. There is no one who shares anything with God in governance, either of the heavens or of the earth. Any conceivable being other than God would necessarily be a part of the universe, and thus belongs to and is a subject of God, Allah, rather than anyone else. Who is it that can intercede with him except by his permission? So now this is the refutation of ideas of those polytheists who consider either saints, angels, or other beings to be influential with God, that if they were adamant in demanding something of him, their demand would prevail. They are being told that far from anyone having the power to impose his will on God, not even the greatest prophets and the most highly esteemed angels will dare utter one word in the majestic court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless they are expressly permitted to do so. Without his permission, no one will speak for anyone. He knows that which is in front of them and which is behind them. and they encompass not a thing of his knowledge except for what he wills. Here, another blow is struck against polytheism. On the basis of the concept of God's unlimited sovereignty and omnipotence, it was stressed that in the foregoing verses that no one shares independently in God's governance of the universe, and no one is so powerful with God that his intercession would decisively influence his judgment. The same point is stressed here, but in a different manner. It is pointed out that no one possesses the knowledge that would enable him to comprehend the order of the universe and the considerations underlying it. So no one can legitimately interfere in its governance. The knowledge of human beings, of jinn, of angels, and of all the other creatures is limited and imperfect. And no one's knowledge embraces all the facts of the universe. If someone did have the right to interfere even only a part of the universe, and if his suggestions were a necessity to be put into effect, the entire order of the universe would be disrupted. Creatures are incapable of understanding what is best for them, and they do not have the capacity to know how best the universe should be governed. It is Allah and Allah only who knows everything, every single dark secret of every single mystery of this world that humans are still trying to find out. For example, what's in the ocean? Allah knows it all because He's created it all. What's in this space? Allah knows it all because He has created it all. So that it shows that how limited the knowledge that we have, and all the knowledge that we have right now is what it is granted to us by Allah. His throne extends over the heavens and the earth. So the Arabic term kursi, here throne and kursi, it means kursi here in this verse it means throne, but in literally what kursi means is something you sit on, a chair, right? In Urdu, in Arabic, we know it means something you sit on, but this word signifies or indicates the power of a chair. Like for example, in politics, you would have heard that person got the chair, or he won the chair, he has the seat now. It doesn't mean that he has something to sit on now. It means that he has the authority of whatever he was going for, right? So just like that, Allah's throne also means arsh in Arabic. Like arsh is an Arabic word for throne too. So here kursi means Allah's throne, Allah's authority. Throne here signifies Allah's authority, that his authority extends over the heavens and the earth, that he can rule whatever is in the heavens and the earth. Every single object here is a subject of Allah, right? And he feels no fatigue in guarding them, and he is the most high supreme. So now he feels no fatigue in guarding them. Like for example, whatever that is happening is because of Allah, right? He is guarding them, right? And he's the most high, most supreme. Of course, he's the most powerful. He's created this world. So of course he is the most high, the most supreme, and the only one worthy to be worshipped. This was verse 255 Ayatul Kursi, and it is a very important verse, and we should recite it daily in our prayers. After we're done praying, we should always recite it because it's a very, very powerful verse. Verse number 256. لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. There shall be no compulsion in the religion. The right path has indeed become distinct from the wrong. So whoever disbelieves in false deities and believes in Allah, then certainly he has grabbed the most trustworthy handhold that will never break. And Allah is all here on. So deen, like here, deen, it signifies the belief about the God embodied in the above verse of throne, that the entire system of life which rests upon Allah. The verse means that system of Islam embracing belief, morals, and practical conduct cannot be imposed by compulsion. These are not things to be, which people can be yoked forcibly to. Okay, for example, here we said that he feels no fatigue in guarding them, right? In guarding them to what? Guarding them towards Islam. He feels no fatigue in that. He can guard whoever he wants to, and he will deprive whoever he wants to, right? But he has given the free will. If he wanted to, this whole world would be worshiping him right now. But there's a reason he has granted everyone free will, that as we mentioned in verse 53. So here again, people here have free will. So there's no compulsion. Allah has given free will for a reason. So why would people, why, that is why here he has said that there should be no compulsion, right? He has refused compulsion, that he has given free will, so you should not, force people to accept Islam. It's their choice, and if they really, really want to, they will. If they don't want to, they won't. So why are you forcing them? And then he talked about false deities, taghut. So literally, taghut means anyone who exceeds his legitimate limits, and that's what it means literally. But in the Quranic terminology, it refers to the creator who exceeds the limits of his spiritualness and arrogates to himself as Lord. There are 3 stages of man's transgression and rebellion against God. So the first stage is that one acknowledges in principle, he understands the principle, he knows the principle that obedience to God is right, but he disregards it in practice. This is fisk. This is called transgression. The second stage is that one not only disobeys, but also rejects the obedience in principle. He doesn't acknowledge, he refuses it. Not like he understands it or acknowledges, he just refuses that principle that God is one. And thus he either refuses to become the subject of anyone at all, or adopts someone other than Allah as the object of service and devotion. This is called kufr, infidelity. They could either be an atheist or polytheist. The third stage is that one only rebels against one's Lord, but also imposes one's own will on God's world and God's creatures. Anyone who reaches such a point is termed taghut, and no one can be a true believer in God unless the authority of such a taghut is rejected. Verse number 257. Allahu waliyul lazina amanu yukhrijuhum min zulumati ila an-nur wal lazina kafaru awliya'uhum at-taghut yukhrijunahum min an-nur ila az-zulumat ulaika ashabun nar hum fiha khalidun. Allah is the protector of those who believe. He brings them out from the darkness into the light and supports who disbelieve. Their supporters are false deities. They take them out of the light into the darkness. Such are the companions of fire, and they will abide therein forever. So the darkness mentioned here is the darkness of ignorance, which throws man off the path of salvation and well-being and directs his energies and efforts to the wrong directions in defiance of reality. Light here means the knowledge of truth, with the help of which man comes to know his own reality and that of the universe. This knowledge also shows him the purpose of his life, and thus leads him consciously to adopt the right way. And now here taghut is in a plural connotation. It implies by turning away from God, a man is subjected not to the tyranny of one, but to the tyranny of many, many tawaghit. One of these is shaitan, as we all know. He throws up new temptations and allurements, right? He whispers into our ears to do wrong deeds, to commit sins. Another potential taghut is a man's own self, which seeks to subjugate him to his appetites and desires, his own nafs. Then then there are many, many more taghut in this world. Like it could be one's wife, or one's spouse, or one's children, one's relative, one's family, one's community, friends and acquaintances, and even leaders and guides. They all have the potential to be a taghut. Each one of them seeks to have his purposes served. Man remains subjected to these innumerable masters throughout his life, not knowing precisely whom he should please and whom displeasure he should avoid. But if he submits completely to Allah, he would know that there is no one who can control him, because even if they're threatening that person, he knows that whatever he will get will be from Allah, right? If he dies in the way of Allah, right? So if he submits completely to Allah and Allah only, there will be no fear for him. Verse number 258. Alam tara illa allazi hajja Ibrahim fi rabbih an atahu Allahul mulk. Is qala Ibrahim rabbil ladzi yuhyi wa yumeet. Qala ana uhyi wa umeet. Qala Ibrahim fa inna Allahu ya'ti bish-shamsi min al-mashriq fa'ti بها من المغرب فبهت الذي كفر والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. Have you not seen of him who had argued with Ibrahim about his Lord, because Allah had given him kingship? When Abraham said, "My Lord is the one who gives life and causes death," he said, "I give life and cause death." Ibrahim said, "Indeed, Allah brings up the sun from the east to bring it up from the west. Thus was confounded he who disbelieved, and Allah does not guide the wrongdoing people." So this is the story of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. As we all know, he was born in a very polytheistic family. His father was a sculptor, and when he found the true God, he destroyed the idols. And when he destroyed the idols, people were mad at him. He threw them to the fire. But obviously, with Allah, as Allah is miraculous, with his miracle, the fire was cold and it felt like a garden. But then people were still not satisfied enough, so they took him to Namrud, who was the king at that time. Namrud was the kind of king who believed that he was a god, and he wanted people, like as Prophet lived in Babylon, so he wanted people in Babylon to follow him, to worship him, and if they wouldn't, he would severely punish them. So now here this reference is to Namrud. When Prophet was sent to Namrud, he told him that he asked him why he destroyed all the idols, and Prophet said that because they were not God. So and Namrud said that, "Tell me who is God." And Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam said that my God is the one who gives life and the one who causes death. Now Namrud said that I too can give life and death. Now he called to slaves and he ordered his soldiers to kill them. Now when the soldier killed one of the slaves, he said, "Look, I can give death." And then when the soldier was about to kill the other one, he asked him to stop. And then he said, "Look, I can give life." So now that he allowed the slave to live, he said that he thinks that he can give him life and he can give death to whoever he wants. But then Prophet Ibrahim said that my Lord brings up the sun from the east. So now why don't you bring it from the west? Now he knew that he's not powerful enough to do that. He knows that the sun and the moon and all those kind of stars, they belong to only one God, right? And everyone in this world knows that there is one creator above that is controlling the whole universe, that who is taking care of how this tinker of the order of the universe, right? So now everyone, even the polytheists, even the atheists, although they believe there is no God, there is something, they know that this world is working through an order. They believe that there is no God. There's like no God at all. But even if you've watched any kind of movies, Hindi movies, you would know that there's people who say there's Hindus who worship idols, but they do say Upparwala, right? Upparwala means the one from above, right? The one who's above. So everyone believes in someone who is above, right? But they acknowledge him, but they refuse to believe in him. For example, Christians, the Jews, they believe that there is Allah, right? Christians, what do they say? They say that they worship Jesus, right? Worship Isa alayhi salam, but they say that Jesus is the Son of God. They know there is one God above, but everyone refuses to worship him. It's how selfish they are, how ignorant they are. They know that there's just one God above, but they refuse to worship him. So that does not guide wrongdoing people. They refuse. They just want. They see it and they're just so blind. So Allah refuses to guide people who don't want to be guided. Verse number 259. أو كالذي مر على قرية وهي خاوية على عروشها قال إنه يحيي هذه الله بعد موتها فأماته الله مئة عام ثم بعثوا قال كم لبثت قال لبثت يوما أو بعد يوم قال بل لبثت مئة عام فانظر إلى طعامك وشرابك لم يتسنه وانظر إلى حمارك ولنجعلك آيات للناس وانظروا إلى العظام كيف ننشزوها ثم نكسوها لحما فلما تبين له قال اعلموا إن الله على كل شيء قدير. Or as the one who passed by a township and that had fallen down upon its roof, he said, how shall Allah bring it to life after death? So Allah cursed him to die for 100 years. Then he raised him back to life. He said, how long did you remain dead? The man said, I have remained a day or a part of a day. Allah said, no, you have remained dead for 100 years. So look at your food and your drink, and they have not become spoiled. And look at your donkey, and we may make you a sign to mankind. Look at the bones, how we bring them together, then clothe them with flesh. Then when it became clear to him, he said, I know that Allah has power over all things. So it is irrelevant to ask who the person was and the place where this incident occurred. The real purpose in mentioning this event is to show how God showed light to the one who had chosen God as his protector and supporter. As for determining the name of the person and the locality, we neither possess the means to do so, nor is such an endeavor in any way beneficial. What seems to be evident from the statement that follows is that the person concerned must necessarily have been a prophet. This question does not signify that the person concerned denied or entertained any doubts regarding life after death. This inquiry merely indicates his wish to have direct knowledge of reality like the prophets of the past. The restoration of life to the man considered to have died 100 years ago was itself insufficient to make him for his contemporaries a living testimony. So when he was brought back to life after 100 years, he was asked how long he's been dead for, and he thought it was just being, a day or somewhat like that. But because his food was not spoiled, it was perfectly fine, and even his donkey, he was there. So now it just shows Allah's power that whatever He wills happens. What we know is that the food would spoil in some days, right? But after even hundreds of years, his body didn't decompose, neither did his animals, and neither did the food. And then Allah shows that Allah tells that look at the bones, and how we have how many bones? 206 bones, right? There's so many bones in us, and they are structured so delicately and so properly. So they're structured so they're defined, right? And then they're covered with flesh. This is how delicately Allah made all of us, billions of people. So now we all should know that it is only one deity that has the power over everything. He has created us, and then He has power over all of us. He's our creator, right? And He knows whatever we're doing. He's our creator, our provider, right? So that that proves that He's the most powerful being of all, and He's the only one worthy to be worshipped. Verse number 260. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى قَالَ أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ قَالَ بَلَى وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي قَالَ فَخُذْ أربعة من الطير فصورهن إليك ثم جعل كل جبل منهن جزءا ثم ادعهن يأتينك سعيا وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. And when Ibrahim said, "My Lord, show me how you give life to the dead," he said, "Do you not believe?" Ibrahim asked, Yes, but I ask that my heart may be satisfied. Then take 4 of the birds and tame them with yourself. Then place on each hill a portion of them. Then call them. They will come to you in haste, and know that Allah is Almighty, all-wise. So now this event. This was one of the miracles that was given to Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. And he asked when he asked Allah to show him how He gives life in dead, Allah told him to take 4 birds and kill them and place one of their parts on each of their parts on one hill, right? So he on the top of each hill, right? And then he did so, and then when he called to them, all came to life and came towards him. Some people have subjected this incident and one above to the very strange interpretations. If one bears in mind, however, God's dealing with the prophets, one will not feel any need to strain one's energy in hammering out such artificially contrived interpretations. The truth of the matter is that the kind of function that ordinary believers are required to perform requires of them no more than believing in certain truths without perceiving them through their senses. The function entrusted by God to the prophets is such that they ought to have direct knowledge of the truths, the acceptance of which they are required to invite others to. Thanks to the nature of their mission, the prophets had to tell the world that while others resorted to conjecture and fancy, they spoke from personal, direct observation and experience. The while others could claim to possess only imagination, they possessed reliable knowledge that while others were blind, they alone had God-given capacity to perceive the truth. It is for this reason that angels came to prophets and deceived them with their own eyes. It is for the same reason that prophets were allowed a glimpse of the system of governance of the heavens and the earth. It is for the same reason again that they were enabled to observe heaven and hell and witness scenes of resurrection. The prophets are in possession of faith and in the unseen. At the time, they are invested with prophethood. After being designated to prophethood, they are further honored by special favors like miracles and privileges, and initiated into what may be termed as faith in the seen. Verse number 261. مثل الذي ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت سبع سنابل في كل سنبلة مائة حبة والله يضاعف لمن يشاء والله واسع عليم. The example of those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah is an example of a grain. It grows 7 years, and in each year is 100 grains. And Allah increases manifold for whom He wills, and Allah is all-encompassing, all-knower. So now here the discourse turns to the subject touched upon verse 244. Believers were urged to sacrifice, in that verse, believers were urged to sacrifice life and property for the sake of great cause in which they believed. It is difficult, however, to pursue those whose standard of judgment in respect of economic matters has not completely changed, to rise above either personal or narrow group interests and dispense their wealth wholeheartedly for the sake of a righteous cause. People who have a materialistic outlook and whose life constitutes an uninterrupted pursuit of money, who adore every single penny they have and who can never stop thinking about their balance sheets, can never have the capacity to do anything that is really effective for the sake of the higher ideals. When such people apparently do spend their money for the sake of higher moral ideals, it is merely an outward act which is performed after carefully calculating the material benefits which are likely to accrue either to them, to their group, or to their nation. With this outlook, a person cannot go one step forward along the path of that religion which requires man to become indifferent to considerations of worldly profit and loss, and constantly to spend time, energy, and money to make the word of God reign supreme. To follow such a course requires a moral outlook of an altogether different kind. It requires breadth of vision and magnanimity, and above all, an exclusive devotion to God. At the same time, it requires that man's collective life should be so remolded as to become conducive to the growth and moral qualities mentioned above rather than to the growth of materialistic outlook and behavior. So a great many expenditures fall under the category of spending in the way of Allah as long as this is done according to the laws of God with the intention of seeking Allah's pleasure. This includes spending one's wealth to fulfill one's legitimate needs, to provide for one's family, to look after the needs of relatives, to help the needy, and to contribute to the general welfare, and to spread the true religion, and so on. And now, the greater the sincerity and the more intense the feeling with which one spends for the sake of God, the greater will be Allah's reward. It is not difficult at all for Allah, who blesses a grain so that out of its 700 grains grow, to allow one's charity to grow in like manner so that the unit of money one spends will return 700-fold. This statement is followed by mention of two of God's attributes. First is his munificence. His hand is not clenched so as to restrain him from recompensing man for his deeds to the fullest extent that he deserves. Second, that Allah is all-knowing. He is not unaware of what spends and in which intention he spends it. So there is no reason to fear that you will not receive your reward for what you've spent. But you have to keep in mind what you're giving is not is you're giving it wholeheartedly, not because you expect something in return. Verse number 262. الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله ثم لا يتبعون ما أنفقوا منا ولا أذى لهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. Those who spend their wealth in cause of Allah and do not follow what they have spent with reminders of generosity, nor with abuse. For them their reward is with their Lord, and there shall be no fear upon them, nor shall they grieve. قَوْلُ مَعْرُوفٌ وَمَغْفِرَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن صَدَقَةٍ يَتْبَعُهَا أَذًى وَاللَّهُ غَنِيٌّ عَلِيمٌ. A kind word and forgiveness are better than charity followed by hurt, and Allah is self-sufficient, forbearing. I'll give the tafsir of both of them together. In these two verses, it's mentioned that people should not fear that they will be amply rewarded, or that they will have any reason to feel remorse for spending in the way of God, because again, what you give to others is what you've taken from Allah, right? Allah gave it to you. So you have it because of Allah, right? So if you spend it thinking that, oh no, I'll be poor, or what will I have left, I should not give it, that is such a disliked act. That why are you not spending what Allah has given to you? Allah has given to you, and He can take it away from you anytime He wills. He has the power to take it away from you in seconds. Maybe your whole job could be ruined, your career could be ruined, maybe your anything could happen to you, and you would lose everything you have in matters of seconds. Now and then it's written that a kind word or forgiveness are better than charity followed by hurt. And so now, if you are being kind to someone, and if you're forgiving someone, that is a better charity. Now even Prophet hadith says that smiling is a charity, right? If you smile to someone, even if it's a stranger, you should smile to strangers, right? Even if it's a stranger, you smile to them. You never know how their day is going. So maybe your smile could change their whole day. Maybe they're having a bad day, and your smile could change it all. And you could be so forgiving. Allah is so forgiving. Imagine the amounts of sins you have committed, and every time you go to forgiveness, you go to Allah for forgiveness, and He forgives you. And you should be as forgiving. Of course, no one can be like Allah, but you could try to be forgiving, right? Someone has hurt you so many times, and if they ask you for forgiveness, forgive them. And if they don't, still forgive them so you yourself can move on. And then you could be kind to them. You don't have to be so aggressive, so arrogant, and so rude to anyone. A kind word and forgiveness could give you so many blessings, right? So many rewards. It could, first of all, it's an act that can give you blessings from Allah, and it's an act that will make you a likable person in the society. So this is a reminder to all of us to be kind, because we never know what's going on in a person's life, and to be forgiving, because that's what one of Allah's attributes are, right? And that's what Allah has ordered us to do. So this is all for today, and I will share the ending duas. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاك الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.